Welcome to an introduction to Reusi Dat Ton, or traditional Thai yoga. My name is David Wells. I work as a yoga therapist at an integrated pain management clinic at upstate New York. And this is for the Thai Medicine and Massage Gathering, the online program, April 2020. So Reusi Dat Ton is the Thai name for what we might commonly call Thai yoga. Reusi comes from the Sanskrit rishi, like the ancient yogis and sages. Dat means to stretch or adjust, and Ton means your own body. So if we think of yoga as the physical practices of yoga as a large tree, over there on the left we have Indian Hatha yoga, which is the most commonly known form of yoga today, spread all around the world. But there are also other lesser known traditions of yoga. There's unique systems of yoga in Nepal, Tibet, Thailand, Sri Lanka as well. And it was out of traditional Thai yoga, or Reusi Dat Ton, that Thai massage developed, taking the self-massage and joint mobilization and self-stretching of traditional Thai yoga and adapting it into systems which other people can use. This is a map of what some scholars consider to be called Greater India. Areas that were not necessarily politically or militarily conquered, but very heavily influenced by the ancient culture of India in that region. For example, they know there were Hindu merchants traveling back and forth between Southeast Asia and India, Buddhist missionaries going back and forth as well, and then an influence from Tibet coming down through Burma into northern Thailand, which is most likely how Reusi Dat Ton arrived in Thailand. So now we're going to look at some images of traditional yogis in this part of the world, India, Nepal, and Tibet. This is an image dated to about 2000 BC. Some scholars believe this may be one of the earliest depictions of yoga technique. Some disagree, but some believe this may well be one of the earliest evidence of yoga asanas found in the Harappan culture in the Indus Valley, what is today Pakistan. It's an early form of the Hindu god Shiva in his form of the load of the beasts. And we can see similar poses still practiced today by Indian yogis. Here are some images of yogis in traditional artwork, and then photographs of yogis during their gatherings in contemporary times. This is from a temple in Rajasthan, northwest India, where there are a depiction of yogis practicing asanas or yoga poses on the outside of the wall. A large mural. And then modern day yogis still practicing similar techniques can be found today. And then yoga techniques from the traditional artwork across India. And then one of my teachers practicing a similar pose. This is Goraknath, or Goraksha. He was kind of the godfather of Hatha yoga. If you go to a lot of the traditional Hatha yoga text, a lot of times all the sources lead back to him as being one of the pioneers of Hatha yoga. He found that he was a member of an order of yogis called the Nath yogis. You can identify them by the earrings right through the cartilage in the center of the ears. That was how they did their initiation. They didn't pierce just the lobes, but they pierced right through the cartilage there and put in a ring. So this was a sign of the Nath yogis. You can still find them around India today. Here are some different images of Goraknath or Goraksha in traditional artwork and temples. And then modern day Nath yogis who are still around today. And then young initiates too. So here's obviously a Nath yogi. We can identify him by the rings through the ears at that same temple in Rajasthan in northwestern India, practicing pranayama or breathing techniques. And more depictions of pranayama or traditional Indian artwork. These are some pictures of yogis down in South India. This is at the Kumbh Mela. It's a gathering that takes place every 4 years. The sadhus and yogis come out from all across the country and have huge conference where they all get together. These were some images taken by James Mallinson, I believe. Headstands and the traditional artwork, and then modern day yogis still practicing. This is Swami Vishnu Devananda, who founded the Shivananda ashrams, which are spread throughout the world nowadays. And then more yogis in traditional stone carving. And yogis today practicing similar techniques. Back down in South India, Gomukhasana, or cow mouth, cow face pose in Hatha Yoga. Similar techniques still being practiced today. The use of yoga straps as well. We can find reference to this in the Vyasa's commentary on the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, the use of straps found throughout the artwork. Now we're moving into images of yogis in traditional artwork in Nepal. And then from a Nepali yoga text I was able to photograph when I was at the library in Kathmandu. And here's an actual Agori yogi in his cave. He lives on the outskirts of the Pashupati temple complex outside of Kathmandu. And then some more images of yogis in traditional artwork in Nepal. A Reusi, or a yogi during the time of the Buddha. There may have come a time in which most of the yogis, maybe 2,500 years ago, were primarily Hindus, and then Buddha came along with his new teachings, and some yogis chose to follow the teachings of the Buddha, and some remained following what might be an ancient form of Hinduism. These are the 8 mahasiddhas from a doorway of a temple in Nepal. Mahasiddhas were the Buddhist yoga masters. So yoga doesn't necessarily belong to any one tradition, Hindu, Jain, Buddhist, Sikh, etc. It's more of a technique, and many different traditions use its techniques. So the mahasiddhas were Buddhist yoga masters. This is Minapa. He was one of those Buddhist yoga masters, known as Matsendranath in the Indian Hindu tradition, but he's known as Minapa in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. One of the stories was that he was trapped in the belly of a fish and unable to escape. And fortunately, one day the fish came up to the shore, the beach, where Shiva, the Indian god of yoga, was teaching his wife yoga. And after they went away, Minapa, inside the belly of the fish, began to practice the yoga techniques he had overheard and developed superpowers or siddhis, and was able to escape from the body of the fish and become the first human yoga teacher. This is a depiction of that myth. And there's just some other mahasiddhas, Tilopa, a mahasiddha or yoga master from South India. And then Naropa, who became a professor at Nalanda University in North India. Here's an image of a mahasiddha from a Mongolian painting. More mahasiddhas from more contemporary artwork. And Tibetan yogis. And there was a mahasiddha named Humkara, who was a master of yoga techniques, which eventually developed in what became known as yantra yoga, which was been preserved in Tibet for about 1,300 years, if you believe some of the accounts. Here's a bronze of Humkara. And it was about 700 AD, I believe, that Guru Rinpoche, also Padmasambhava, who was like a Buddhist wizard yoga master, was invited to come to Tibet and bring the teachings of Buddhism. And with him, he brought Varochana, who was also a scholar and a translator. So about 700 AD. And on their way to Tibet, they stopped in Nepal, and they studied the system of yoga with Humkara, and then they brought that into Tibet, which they claim has been preserved in Tibet for about 1,300 years, passed down from teacher to student. Nowadays, it's been made more popular by Lama Nongkai Norbu, a Tibetan refugee who set up a center in Italy. Other great practitioners of Tibetan yoga include Milarepa. Here's some images of Tibetan yogis from traditional artwork. And these techniques were documented in this temple, the Lugong Temple in Lhasa, Tibet. It sits on an island on a lake behind the famous Potala Palace in Lhasa, Tibet. And if you go up to the top floors of the temple, on the walls, on all four walls, there are painted in frescoes, these murals depicting the yoga techniques. These techniques come from two different texts. One is the Compendium of Enlightened Spontaneity, and the other is the Secret Key to the Channels and Winds. The artist that produced these lived from 1654 to 1717 AD. So I don't know exactly when they were painted, but it must have been somewhere within that time frame that these murals were painted. And this was used as like the private study chamber for the Dalai Lamas. They would come up into these rooms, and these would be their handbooks and instructional manuals with the depictions of the different technique as well as instructions. And if you read the translations of these and look at what they're doing, me and some of my teachers have noticed that some of these things are almost identical or very similar to Thai Ruesi Dat Ton techniques. So here's a bit of evidence that Ruesi Dat Ton is actually of a Tibetan origin, not Indian. So these are some of those murals that are painted on the inside walls of the Lugong Temple outside of Lhasa, Tibet. Doing poses and things, but also there were mantras and visualizations and meditation techniques. Here's a Tibetan tanka showing an entire yoga lineage, the different teachers, and many of the different techniques that they practiced. And here's a traditional Tibetan yoga text. And then more murals depicting some of the Tibetan yoga techniques, and we'll see some details. More Tibetan yogis from the traditional artwork I found while I was backpacking across Nepal, visiting temples and museums and libraries. Again, they also use straps in Nepal as well. This is another yoga system from Tibet called Lujong. So there's not even just one type of Tibetan yoga. There's various different types: Yantra yoga, Kunai, Salung, and Lujong, which is this a depiction of, I believe. So many branches to that yoga tree that we saw earlier. Here's some very advanced Tibetan yoga techniques, and they have similar, not quite so violent counterparts in Thai Ruesi Dat Ton. This is an image from a documentary called Yogis of Tibet, which came out about 20 years ago. I believe you can still find it on YouTube if you want to see the whole demonstration. And now we'll look at some images of Rusis or yogis in this part of the world, Southeast Asia. If we could go back in a time machine about 1,000 years ago, we would find that Southeast Asia looks different on a map than it does today. There were different kingdoms. Vietnam wasn't really established. A lot of what is Vietnam was the ancient Cham Empire, and then the Cambodian or Angkor Empire was there. And then Thailand was just getting started. In the far north, you had the Lana Kingdom, which is where a lot of the traditional knowledge of Thai medicine and Ruesi Dat Ton has been preserved, and also other kingdoms of Sukhothai and Lopburi. So I spent about 6 months backpacking across Southeast Asia looking for evidence of Ruesi Dat Ton in neighboring countries as well. So I visited Cambodia because I knew it was an older culture and a lot of the Thai culture came from there. This is Angkor Wat, the largest religious structure in the world. And then Angkor Thom. And indeed, there were images of Rusis or yogis all over the artwork there. One of the hazards of being a Rusi, I guess, living in the forest, you might get chased up trees by tigers. Here's a photograph of a Cambodian or Khmer Rusi. And indeed, in Cambodian artwork, you see them using straps as well. Here's a photograph of a Thai Lucy. And here is an actual Thai Lucy who was one of my teachers. Lucies have various functions. They can perform various ceremonies for blessings, protection, giving magic tattoos as well. This is what might be a combination of like acupressure and pose as well, doing two things at once, a little acupressure as well as a physical pose and exercise from Reusi Dat Ton at the Thai Ministry of Public Health in Nonthaburi, Thailand. So here's an image of a Reusi Dat Ton technique, forward bend. So if you were a student of Indian yoga, when you bend forward like this, you would probably exhale because you're compressing the diaphragm and the lungs, and you would inhale when you come back out. But in Thai Reusi Dat Ton, in Tibetan yoga, it's the opposite. Generally, they would inhale going into a forward bend like this and exhale coming out because they're not thinking about physical structures such as lungs and diaphragms and things like that. They're thinking about energetics and how the movement coordinated with the breath can drive the wind or the energy through the sen or the channels that carry the winds through the body. So here's another bit of evidence that Reusi Dat Ton is probably of Tibetan, not Indian origin. This is a temple in northeast Thailand, Buriram. And if you climb all the way up to the top, you'll find the main image is Shiva in the form of a yogi. He was said to be able to cure disease just using mantras or chanting. And then Shiva again in his 10-armed dancing form. And if you know where to look around these temples, usually at the base of the doorway, you'll find more images of Lucies or yogis there. I found this throughout Asia, from Southeast Asia all the way back to India and Nepal. Look at the base of the doorways, and you can often find images of yogis or Lucies carved. And Lucies with their ancient texts as well, from about 1,000 years ago. Here's the form of Shiva sitting in the center with 4 yogis on his side, known as the 5 yogis. These were followers of the Pashupatinath sect, or Shiva in the form of the Lord of the Beasts. And here is a modern day temple in Nepal dedicated to that same sect of Pashupatinath yogis. So we find these ancient religious traditions spread across thousands of miles in different countries, spread across thousands of years as well, that are still alive in certain parts of the world. This is the ancient Thai capital in 1767 when the Burmese invaded and destroyed the Thai capital. So there may have been older Reusi Dat Ton texts that were destroyed when these libraries and temples were burned. We just don't know. But we know for sure there was this disaster that took place in 1767 when the Burmese destroyed the ancient Thai capital of Ayutthaya. And the Thais retreated down south to what became Bangkok. This is Wat Po, which was set up to become the center of the Thai cultural renaissance. This temple was renovated, and the king commissioned a group of scholars to spread out throughout the country and gather together what remained of traditional knowledge, like medicine and literature and astrology and healing, and bring everything they could back to Wat Po. The primary image is about 100-foot-long gold-covered Buddha with mother-of-pearl feet depicting various myths from the Buddha's lifetime. These are the temple grounds at Wat Po. Some of the Reusi Dat Ton statues we'll talk about that were created. And there are a number of pavilions all over the temple there. So the king commissioned scholars to produce authoritative textbooks based on the medical knowledge that existed at the time. And then these texts were carved into marble tablets that we see here. It said that there were over 1,000 herbal formulas, as well as theories about the origin and treatment of disease, and medical theories, and Thai massage charts that we can see down at the bottom row too. These are some depictions of traditional Thai massage as it's practiced today. Some old Lucies doing some Thai massage on each other. And then more modern statues. and then modern day practitioners still practicing. So here's a quote from a friend of mine: Thai massage practitioners should all practice Ruesi Dat Ton. It is the root of our practice. It prepares our bodies for our work as well as informs us about that which we are applying to our patients. And then from one of my teachers: the foundation and key to traditional Thai massage, is Ruesi Dat Ton. Ancient Lucis, through their own experimentation and experience, developed their understanding of the various bodies: physical, energetic, psychic, etc. They discovered the postures, channels, points, the winds, and the wind gates within themselves. Later, it was realized that these techniques could be adapted and applied to others for their healing benefit, which is how Thai massage was developed. So in order to really understand Thai massage as a practitioner, one should have a foundation in Ruesi Dat Ton and be able to experience it within oneself and then apply it to others. It is not only the roots of Thai massage, but it also unlocks the method for treating oneself and maintaining one's own health. So for example, here is a depiction of a traditional Ruesi Dat Ton exercise, and then how that exercise evolved into a technique that you applied to others, which is the evolution of Thai massage. So we have the Thai massage technique, and then we have this very similar technique found in Ruesi Dat Ton in traditional artwork. This is a Cham Apsara, a celestial dancer from what became Vietnam, dated about 1,000 years ago. Okay, so here we have the Ruesi Dat Ton, body side stretch, and then we can see the Thai massage technique that was developed out of. So on the left, we have the do-it-yourself, Ruesi Dat Ton, and then on the right, we have apply to someone else, traditional Thai massage technique. Same thing here, we have Ruesi Dat Ton hip mobilization on the left, and then a Thai massage practitioner applying that technique to someone. Self-massage for the forehead in Ruesi Dat Ton, and then that was adapted into a massage technique that's applied to someone else in traditional Thai massage. Here's from a statue at Wat Po showing arm massage. And we see the Ruesi Dat Ton technique on the left, and then the same technique applied to someone else on the right. Abdominal massage on the left, and then applying abdominal massage to someone on the right. Do-it-yourself back massage from Ruesi Dat Ton, and then applying back massage to someone else through the modality of traditional Thai massage. Massaging the thigh for yourself, and then massaging the thigh for someone else. Leg extensions, which also have a massage component, doing it yourself and then applying to somebody else. Do-it-yourself foot massage, and then apply foot massage to someone else. So in addition to those marble tablets, the king also ordered the creation of 80 Ruesi Dat Ton statues in 1836. Along with each statue, there was a poem that was engraved on a tablet, and the poem described the technique and its therapeutic benefit. A lot of these statues have been destroyed over the centuries. About 20 still survive. This is one of the little mountains called the Hermit's Mountain, where you can still see them at Wat Po in Bangkok today. And this is the second Hermit's Mountain that has some more statues that you can see today. These are from 1836. This is a modern statue. They have set about recreating the original 80 statues. The project began about 10 years ago, I believe. When I was last in Thailand, I saw a few that had come out. So this is one of the brand new Ruesi Dat Ton statues based around the original 80. And we can see the tablet, which has the poem describing the technique and its therapeutic benefit. These are some of the older statues from about 2 centuries ago. And we see different ailments recommended here for scapula and shoulder discomfort. And I found this to be really effective in my clinic. For stiff arms, for hand and facial spasm, shoulder strain, and foot numbness due to vata. Vata is how Thais pronounce the Indian term vata, an Ayurvedic term. So we can see that there is some sophisticated medical terminology being used in these poems. Convulsions due to vata and possibly tetanus. For chest compression due to vata. Headaches, dizziness, vomiting, and blackouts due to vata. for stiff legs and to eliminate wind from the body and thus balance all four elements. Again, we see reference to traditional medical theory, the four elements, earth, water, fire, and air, balancing them through specific Ruesi Dat Ton exercises. And these are some of the new statues we can see around Wat Po. Another Ruesi Dat Ton statue, similar to a dancer in Indian yoga, but done in a slightly different style in Thai Ruesi Dat Ton. And then one of the older statues in what we call Bandakon Asana. This is one of the classical source texts of Ruesi Dat Ton. It contains line drawings based on those 80 statues at Wat Po, along with the poems, known as the Samut Thai Gao, or the White Thai Book, and then subtitled the Book of 80 Lyssies performing posture exercises to cure various ailments. These are details from some of the text showing the line drawings based upon the statues as well as the original poems. This was a text that was published in 1958 by the Thai Ministry of Public Health, known as the Book of Medicine. It had a number of different chapters on massage, herbalism, and they had a small chapter on Ruesi Dat Ton, where there were little line drawings and descriptions of 60 different techniques. So this, combined with the earlier text from 1838, are probably some of the oldest source texts of Ruesi Dat Ton that we have available. There may have been older texts lost when the temples of Ayutthaya were burned, but this is about the oldest sources that we have nowadays. And when someone ordains and become a Russi, they have a number of rules they have to follow and responsibilities. And one of your responsibilities as a Russi is that before you die, you either have to train a student who will carry on your knowledge to the next generation, or you have to write a text which will be left and passed on after you die. And so my teacher's teacher has taken to taking old Ruesi Dat Ton texts and recopying them with color pencils, which we see here. So this is a modern day rendering of a copy of what was an older text that's been passed down over the generations through the lineage of Ruesi Dat Ton holders up in northern Thailand. Pushing in the 6 directions, we saw a statue of this earlier at Wat Po. This is Wat Machimawat. It's a temple down in Songkhla, far southern Thailand. I traveled down here because I had heard that there was a pavilion or a sala which had a mural depicting various Ruesi Dat Ton techniques. So I was able to get permission and go in, and in fact it was true. High up on the inside walls, on both sides, you have 2 different murals which depict a total of 40 Ruesi Dat Ton techniques. These are based on the 80 statues at Wat Po, and underneath each image you can see the poem describing the technique and its therapeutic benefit. I was lucky enough to have come down about a month after the Fine Arts Department had come down and repaired and repainted the mural. I had seen images of this mural in old text, and the paint was falling off, and it was in pretty rough shape. So just by serendipity and lucky timing, I got down there just after the mural had been repaired and touched up. So these guys are looking a lot better than they used to. This is the deer exercise, similar to the Indian dancer, but they're called Narad's pose. This is at Mahidol University in Bangkok, where they have a museum of traditional Thai medical history. And there is a Ruesi Dat Ton display depicting 60 techniques from that text that we saw earlier, the Book of Medicine, from, I believe, 1958. They have copied those techniques and little plywood figures that they're painted about 6 inches tall. It's known as the arrow in Ruesi Dat Ton, what we might call the half bow in Indian Hatha Yoga, similar to the full bow in Indian Hatha Yoga, but called the wheel in Ruesi Dat Ton. This is an image of a Thai mother goddess with the elements within her and the cosmos and the zodiac outside, but she's doing a technique that's found in Ruesi Dat Ton and also Indian yoga as well. This is at the Thai Ministry of Public Health in Nonthaburi. They also have a museum of Thai medical history and a small display of Ruesi Dat Ton techniques. Little statues here of Ruesi Dat Ton. And outside of the museum, they've created an artificial mountain and placed some reproductions of the statues from Wat Po. So this is the second newer Hermit's Mountain at the Thai Ministry of Public Health with newer statues. And inside the artificial mountain is the Lucy's Cave. And there's small little guys about 6 to 8 inches tall, little statues depicting numerous Ruesi Dat Ton techniques. So I took an afternoon and photographed all of them. A friend of mine thinks of this as Ruesi Dat Ton's small world. This is the ancient city in Samut Prakan in the eastern suburbs of Bangkok. It's sort of a cultural theme park where you can find scaled down reproductions of famous buildings and palaces and temples. And I visited because I had heard about the Sala of the 80 Yogis, which is a large pavilion which has 80 life-size statues of various Ruesi Dat Ton techniques. Performing the 80 postures of the yogi is a form of ancient Thai medical treatment that has been studied and practiced for generations. The instructions initiated in the reign of King Rama III were recorded in Thai books. Muang Bolan, ancient city, after gathering all useful information, has reconstructed the complete models of the 80 yogi, performing 80 different postures on the field outside the sala. The full description of each posture is recorded on the wall inside the pavilion. This is intended to be the knowledge center for medical study for people in the future. This is one of the things that really interested me about Ruesi Dat Ton early on. I was interested in yoga therapy, but a lot of what I saw was people around me trying to learn yoga techniques and then figure out how they worked and what they did. But when I realized that there were people who lived centuries ago who were writing poems about the therapeutic value of these exercises, I thought it would be really worthwhile to go back and see what they had discovered and what they knew, rather than us trying to reinvent yoga therapy based on our own limited understanding. So this is some of the Ruesi Dat Ton statues at the ancient city. I was there a long time ago, so you'll see some statues are kind of beat up and old. Those are my photos. These nicer ones have been repainted and repaired, and they were photographed by friends of mine who had visited there more recently. Ruesi Dat Ton has a wide range of techniques. There are vigorous running in place exercises, such as this, which can give you a pretty good cardio workout, as well as more like conventional static type Indian yoga asanas as well. And joint mobilization, self-massage, everything in between. This is Ajahn Pisit Benjamin Kongwari, who was one of my teachers. He wasn't very well known amongst foreigners, but he was famous in the Thai community as a teacher and practitioner of traditional Thai massage, and also as a government vocational program. He would train blind people to become Thai massage therapists as part of a government vocational training program. This was one of my teachers at Wat Po. They offered a one-day Ruesi Dat Ton certification course at Wat Po where you could learn 18 techniques and then get a little Ruesi Dat Ton certification. Also, the Thai Ministry of Public Health offered a one-day program where you could study 15 techniques and get a Reusi Dat Ton certification. And I spent a long time traveling across Thailand and Southeast Asia looking for any evidence of this, and occasionally find you little collectible figures like these guys as well. These are the 15 techniques that are taught by the Thai Ministry of Public Health. If you study traditional Thai medicine or massage at the Thai Ministry of Public Health, learning these 15 techniques are part of the curriculum. They're not all real traditional. Some of these are modern adaptations that have been made a little bit easier for beginners. And they also created a series of animated cartoons of the 15 different Reusi Dat Ton exercises as well. And one of my impressionable young students, after having seen my slideshow, has now begun creating her own Reusi Dat Ton statues, which we can see here. So I'm hoping to convince her that we should take the techniques that have not yet been depicted in murals and statues and have her make original statues of them, so that eventually we can have a complete artistic record of all the techniques in Reusi Dat Ton. Here's a Reusi Dat Ton technique painted on the front window of a Thai massage business in Bangkok. Lucy's hanging out in traditional artwork. So I traveled to neighboring countries as well, seeing if they had similar exercise systems of Reusi Dat Ton that might be somehow related. So here we are back in Cambodia. And indeed, there's Lucy's all over the temples there. But they were mostly known as astrologers, fortune tellers, and herbalists. They didn't seem to know anything about a system of therapeutic exercise like you found in Thailand. These are even older temples in Cambodia, dated about 900 AD. Spent about a month backpacking across Cambodia through scenes like this. Occasionally you might find images like this, which may or may not be yoga techniques. This is an even older temple, dated to about 600 AD. And you can barely make it out, but I believe this is a Reusi using a strap, as we've seen earlier in more contemporary artwork as well. And then if you climb up to newer temples, again, you'll find the same images. This is a temple in northern Cambodia in Siem Reap, and the abbot here of the temple and let me come in and photograph the mural they had on the inside walls. And he pointed out the flying Reusis, or the flying yogis, up on top, and that they always use this pose when they fly. No other pose will do. So this is specifically the flying Reusi pose. Very similar to Cambodian dancing. And then Thai Reusi Dat Ton techniques. This is that same mural. And we find a similar forearm stretch in Thai Reusi Dat Ton. And my clinic, I found this very effective for people suffering from carpal tunnel syndrome. Traveled across Laos. This is up in northern Laos. And bicycled across the ancient capital of Luang Prabang, visiting museums and libraries and temples. In fact, you do find flying yogis up there in northern Laos, and they use the same pose that they do in Cambodia and in India and in Thailand. This is Hanuman. Right now he's serving as a temple guardian, protecting the entrance to a temple in Laos. But this is also a Reusi Dat Ton exercise that's used to decompress the spine and stop foot cramps and increase longevity. Found in the iconography as well. And it's similar to what's known as the goddess pose in Indian yoga, but known as the giant in Thailand, or the yaksas, the temple guardians. And there's a whole series of techniques that they do. They do a dance, which is very similar to what we see in wrathful or protector deities in Tibetan Buddhist iconography. Another exercise, the Reusis pretend to hold a staff. If you've got four arms, you can do two different techniques simultaneously. Here is a depiction of a squat found in India, dated about 600 AD. And we find a similar technique in Reusi Dat Ton statues at Wat Po. Running in place exercise from a Nepali yoga manuscript. and what might be similar techniques in Thai Reusi Dat Ton. The side stretch from ancient Cham civilization, what became Vietnam, about 1000 AD, and its Reusi Dat Ton counterpart. The king cobra in Indian yoga, again about 600 AD in eastern India, Orissa, and then found in Thailand and in Thai Reusi Dat Ton today. The Gomukasana or cow mouth pose from those mahasiddhas in Nepal, and then Reusi Dat Ton today. More images from the jungle-covered temples of Southeast Asia, occasionally finding things such as this. Squatting pose from Nepal, back from the Indus Valley about 2000 BC, and then Reusi Dat Ton 200 years ago, from a Nepali yoga manuscript, and then an entire Reusi Dat Ton manuscript. Back at the ancient city in Thailand. This is actually from the Dominican Republic in the Caribbean, pre-Columbian artwork from at least 500 years ago before Columbus and Europeans arrived. I don't know what was going on there, but someone was creating statues like this. Back to that Nepali yoga manuscript, and then in Thai Reusi Dat Ton, a Nepali yoga text, and Thai Reusi Dat Ton. Traveling through southern Laos. Even remote temples like this, you can find evidence of Reusis as well, doing their little poses and exercises. Okay, so Reusi Dat Ton is a very comprehensive system. I would say it's really on par with Indian Hatha yoga and Tibetan yoga traditions. It's very comprehensive. It has a system of full body self-massage, joint mobilization, all kinds of fancy poses and exercises and breathing techniques that we find in Indian Hatha yoga as well as Tibetan yoga. They even have mantras and chanting as well, but they use the Pali language rather than the Sanskrit, because we could think of this as a Buddhist tradition. And a wide crew paying respect to the teachers. And we'll run through some of the Reusi Dat Ton techniques that I was able to find in traditional artwork. So from the wide crew dance, seated poses. So again, we find similar poses in the different cultures. So if you're a student of Indian yoga, you know this as lotus or Padma-asana. It's also found in Tibet, sometimes called lotus or Vajra-asana, the diamond or thunderbolt pose. And then in Thailand, Katsaman Pech, or the meditation pose. So same pose in these different cultures and traditions, maybe just a different name. And then the half pose, or half Katsaman Pech in Thailand. The legs loose pose, found in Tibetan Buddhist iconography. You can also use this in Reusi Dat Ton if you're not comfortable seating cross-legged. And then Reusi is back in Southeast Asia. So this is a head and neck massage. Reusi Dat Ton contains a full body self-massage. Not all the techniques are depicted in traditional artwork. Just some of it is. So this is a technique massaging the face and the base of the skull in artwork as well as line drawings. Massaging pressure points right under the chin with the knuckles. Massaging the neck. What's called pressing the occiput. It's sort of an ancient Reusi Dat Ton do-it-yourself chiropractic adjustment. Pressing the occiput. Shoulder massage in Reusi Dat Ton. Arm massage. Hand massage. Pectoral massage. Back massage. Leg massage. Thigh massage. One of my favorites, foot massage. Reusi Dat Ton also has a full sequence of joint mobilization, systematically loosening all the joints from the toes up to the jaw and eyes. But unfortunately, this was the only depiction of joint mobilization I could find in traditional artwork. So if all you have to go on is artwork, you wouldn't really know anything about joint mobilization. But fortunately, that was preserved by actual Reusis over the centuries, passing it down through their lineage. So this is neck mobilization. On to the right, we see it's described as being for bad wind in the neck. That's what this exercise is for. And after that, we have a whole series of very vigorous standing exercises, running in place. Forward, backward bends, the elephant walk, really good for the upper back. The frog and a whole series of squatting exercises depicted in different manuscripts. The giants, the yaksas, the temple guardians, they have a whole series of exercises. Decompressing the spine, and good for foot cramps, longevity. In different manuscripts, I was able to find this. Holding the staff, holding up the rooftops as well as dancing. Even Ganesh dances in the iconography. Some very vigorous, almost violent techniques, jumping up and down and landing on your heels, said to drive the wind up through the central channel and clear all your blockages. More squats for the frog series of exercises. This is the seated lion exercise. Even in the modern statues of Wat Po, they've included that. The standing lion at the ancient city. The archer exercise. In different sources. This is very similar to a technique found in Tibetan yoga called the dagger. What they call the yogi's pose, Bandha Konasana, full butterfly. It has a whole series of exercises to open up the channels. Similar to what was found in the Indus Valley 4,000 years ago. A little more advanced variations for some people. This really interesting form stretch, but you perform it as you transition from standing down to a squat. Found in different areas, different texts I could find this. Hip mobilization, prepare you for the more advanced cross-legged poses. From different manuscripts and texts. This series can be done seated, standing, as well as lying down. So you do that whole series of exercises. It gives you enough flexibility that you can easily sit in the full lotus or Vajrasana, Katsaman Pech pose, where you do your breathing exercises and meditation. Found in different cultures. That was India. Here is Nepal, back in India, in Nalanda University in India. Even in China, probably brought to China by Buddhist missionaries. More Reusi Dat Ton exercises for stretching the forearms, locking the arms. Various types of twisting can be done seated as well as lying down. Side stretches. This is called gazing at the stars. More twisting. The floating lotus pose to build up the strength of the hands. More forearm stretches. The deer. This is the crocodile series. The naga or the serpent series. Basic and then more advanced variations. Again, we find similar techniques in Indian Hatha Yoga. This was offering the jewel, and there's a whole exercise for it in Ruesi Dat Ton. Similar to the locust poses in Indian Hatha Yoga, good for building back strength. The arrow in Ruesi Dat Ton, another one of the arrow variations, and then the wheel in Ruesi Dat Ton. A whole series of forward bends as well. Found the different texts and artwork. This is the wisdom increasing exercise. This is the monkey face Ruesi Dat Ton pose for core strength. This technique is said to be good for asthma and breathing trouble. And interestingly, while studying yoga therapy in hospitals in India, I found almost the same exact exercise given for the same exact problem as we found in Thailand. So 2 different sources recommending the same technique for the same ailment. Crossing the legs twice, similar to what you see in the eagle of Indian yoga, but they lie down on the back and do a series of twists with it, which is great for the lower back if you can do it. Different rolling techniques, said to open up all the channels as you massage the whole spine. Different seated techniques, twisting of various types. The flying Lucy's, Hanuman flying, and then Lucy's flying as well. The giants also holding up the temples using this flying Lucy pose. Now, old statues back from Wat Po. And then modern day drawings of the Ruesi Dat Ton techniques. Similar to the tree, but done a different style in Thai Ruesi Dat Ton. The hand to foot pose if you're a student of Indian yoga, but done a slightly different way in Thai style. With some really hardcore variations where you squat up and down on just one leg while holding the other leg straight out in front. Here's a little partner Ruesi Dat Ton, which you can try if you have a trustworthy friend. These are actually circus performers from a mural painted in Bangkok. Or a team of 3, you can juggle swords and practice these techniques. The Thai Ruesi Dat Ton counterpart of the Indian dancer at Wat Po. And then some of the murals. More advanced Ruesi Dat Ton techniques. This was from for hema paralysis. And then the floating lotus pose. There is no shavasana or corpse in Ruesi Dat Ton, but this is their traditional relaxation pose. Also found it in a traditional artwork as well. This is pushing in the 6 directions: north, south, east, west, up and down, which is a traditional way to finish out a Ruesi Dat Ton practice. Pushing in the 6 directions. Okay, thank you very much for coming. If you want, you can get a free sample handbook off my website at wellsyoga.com. And thank you all very much.